When we are bewildered, we do not distinguish what is religious and what is not religious. At that time, there is need of Guru. That is the Vedic instruction. Tadvijnanatham sa gurumeva vigache. Material world means in every stage there is danger. So, therefore we should take guide from Guru, from the spiritual master, how to make progress.
विदेशेषु मान्य स्वदेशेषु धन्य सदाचारवृत्तेषु मत्तो न चान्य मनश्चेन लग्नं गुरोरङ्घ्रिपद्मे ततः किं ततः किं ततः किं ततः किम् क्षमामण्डले भूपभूपालवृन्दै सदा सेवितं यस्य पादारविन्दं मनश्चेन लग्नं गुरोरङ्घ्रिपद्मे ततः किं ततः किं ततः किं ततः किम् यशो मे गतं दिक्षु दानप्रताप जगद्वस्तु सर्वं करे यत्प्रसादात् मनश्चेन लग्नं गुरोरङ्घ्रिपद्मे ततः किं ततः किं ततः किं ततः किम्
The injunction of the Vedas that if you want real knowledge, you must go to Guru. Now there are so many gurus. Where shall I go? You shall go to a Guru. Samitpani Sutryam Brahmanishtam. You shall go to a Guru who is Brahmanishtam, a great devotee. He is good. One who has full knowledge in Brahma. Athato Brahmati.
योगेन योगेन वावाजिराजं न कान्तामुखेनैव वित्तेषु चित्तं मनश्चेन लग्नं गुरोरङ्घ्रिपद्मे ततः किं ततः किं ततः किं ततः किम् अरण्येन वा स्वस्य गेहेन कार्ये न देहे मनो वर्तते वेद्वनद्ये मनश्चेन लग्नं गुरोरङ्घ्रिपद्मे ततः किं ततः किं ततः किं ततः किम् गुरोरष्टकं यः पठेत् पुण्यदेहि यतिर्भूपतिर्ब्रह्मचारी च गेहि लभेत् वाञ्छितार्थं पदं ब्रह्म संज्ञं गुरोरुक्तवाक्ये मनो यस्य लग्नं गुरोरुक्तवाक्ये मनो यस्य लग्नं गुरोरुक्तवाक्ये मनो यस्य लग्नम्
नमो विष्णुपादाय कृष्णप्रेष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदांत स्वामिन इति नामिने नमस्ते सारस्वते देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेषा शून्यवादी पाश्चात्य देश तारिणे जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्त वृंद हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे. Hare Krishna. A very warm welcome to all of you on day 21 of Srila Prabhupada Lila, London RATH YATRA. So the complications of the Bombay project seem to be settling down. The crowd is in favor of the Hare Krishna movement now. Mr. Nair committing a Vaishnava offense, he died with a heart attack. And in Mayapur also things were developing very nicely. Now let us see what follows. June 27, 1973. From Mayapur, Srila Prabhupada went to Calcutta. He wrote to Tamal Krishna Goswami, "There is a suggestion by Shyam Sundar that I may go to London for meeting very important men there in the new house given to us by George. But I want to make some definite settlement of Bombay affairs before I return to Europe or America. If there is a suitable place for me to stay for a few days in Bombay, I can go there immediately and from there I may go to London." So Srila Prabhupada was very keen in meeting the most important men of the society. Because as we have discussed, Prabhupada was always stressing upon the principle as the leaders follow, as the leaders practice in their life, common men would follow. So it is very important to change the leaders in order to bring quick change in the society. And in London, where the most influential Beatles, they were favorable to the movement, and George Harrison was a devotee. He even wanted to join the temple full time. But Prabhupada told him, you can do better seva by outside. It does not matter. The dress is not important. This dress we have taken for preaching. You can preach better in your occupation as a musician. And George Harrison, he donated his entire mansion, huge property, which is still there in London, known as Bhaktivedanta Manor. So he donated it completely for the movement, for the service of Krishna, and he also sponsored the publication of Krishna book. And he was very keen in spreading the movement all over the world. So thus Shyam Sundar Prabhu was inviting Prabhupada, please come here, I have arranged your meeting with very important men. While considering his itinerary, Prabhupada passed some days in the Calcutta temple on the Albert Road. He was very free about allowing people to see him, and his room was often filled with local Bengalis as well as his own disciples seated on a white sheet before him. In the evenings he would go, even when it meant riding for miles through congested parts of the city, just to speak for 1 hour in some of the people, the families who were favorable. Preaching Krishna consciousness. Srila Prabhupada's sister, Bhavatarini, known as Pishima to Prabhupada's disciples, would also visit the Calcutta temple to see her beloved brother and as usual to cook for him. One day, however, few hours after eating her kachoris, Prabhupada felt sharp pains in his stomach. And when disciple goes inside to see that Prabhupada is tossing, and he asked Prabhupada, what happened? My stomach, Prabhupada replied, that coconut kachori, it was not cooked. The seizure continued all night, and several devotees continually massaged Prabhupada's body, especially his stomach. But with every breath he was moaning. It was giving him intense pain, and some devotees thought Prabhupada will not survive the morning. Prabhupada asked the picture of Lord Narasimha be taken from the altar and put beside his bed. Some devotees feared that Prabhupada might be about to pass away. The devotees called the local Kaviraj Ayurvedic doctor. The old Kaviraj came and diagnosed Prabhupada's illness as severe blood dysentery. He left the medicine, but medicine also did not work. Then Prabhupada told the disciples to cook a special dish. He requested fried puris with little patala and salt. Bhavanand protested. Such fried foods would be the worst thing for him. So as some modern nutritionists, they tell everything fried is bad. You just take something completely free of all fats, and so this is another calamity they are creating. Many other bone diseases, other disorders, stomach problems we develop in the body. No, the fats which are now propagated because of the vested interests of many false research work produced by the companies, that is harmful for us. But natural fats are very much required, and they are sattvic in nature. Ghee, butter and other such things. But the culture was everything was to be fried in ghee. Prabhupada tells ghee is meant for inside and oil is meant for outside. Although cooking in oil, mustard oil could be sometimes tasty, but still that is not very healthy for inside the body, and especially when you make it refined, it becomes much more dangerous. So Prabhupada's disciples protested, but Prabhupada was advanced in knowledge of Ayurveda as well. Thus when Prabhupada got heart attack, immediately next day he is cooking puris for himself. So modern doctor will get a heart attack by hearing after heart stroke a person is having puris, but Prabhupada was knowing. So thus Prabhupada told, you make puris with patala, one special vegetable. And these Western disciples used to the modern way of thinking of nutrition. They told it cannot be taken at this time. You are having severe stomach ache. These foods are very unhealthy. Prabhupada said that this was the blood dysentery cure his mother had given during his childhood. He then called for his sister, Pishima Bhavatarini Devidasi, and speaking to her in Bengali, Prabhupada told her to cook the same. And she cooked it, and Prabhupada ate it. And then Prabhupada became fine in few hours. And then Prabhupada called his disciples and he tells, my mother was right. A lengthy telegram arrived from Shyam Sundar glorifying the preaching opportunities that awaited Prabhupada in London, where he would be picked up at the airport in a helicopter and directly taken to the RATH YATRA spot. The greatest RATH YATRA ever held. The parade would proceed down Piccadilly Lane, climaxing under a large pavilion at Trafalgar Square. Prabhupada said, "Let me strike when the iron is hot." I think that is an English maxim. If you do that, then you can keep the iron in shape. In the West, people are fed up. So we want to give them spiritual enlightenment. Prabhupada had immediately convinced his disciples with his forceful statements. So this is very important. So Prabhupada spoke this maxim a couple of times. Strike when the iron is hot. Or God helps those who help themselves. So sometimes people fall to one extreme that I am the doer. Universe is at your command. Whatever you think, that will happen. On the other extreme, some people think fatalism is all in all. We are completely controlled like robots. You have no freedom at all. Prabhupada told, no, that is not fact. Just like now also you can understand. As per your actions, you decide few things in your future. Today, if you overstuff yourself, then one time you have to fast. In the evening, you cannot eat. And again, in the freedom is there in the evening. If you eat again in the evening, then further loss of appetite would happen. And if you continue this overeating for some more time, you may become diabetic or some other diseases may come. And you have to stop eating for some time. So this is the law of nature. But freedom is always there with the person. Now you have chosen some streams, some subjects. Basis that there is opportunity for us to do job. In a similar fashion, we do certain activities and basis that Krishna reciprocates. So God helps those who help themselves, Prabhupada tells. God is very much willing to help everybody, but then you have to help yourself. Yes, now you are feeling helpless, but whatever little freedom we have, if we try our best to resist Maya, to come out of the forces of nature, then Krishna will give help. And we take that help positively, Krishna will arrange things very nicely. And if you don't take advantage of opportunity, then Krishna is also a person. Prabhupada tells Krishna may feel disappointed, he may take away the opportunity. So thus we should be very, very cautious. So when one big donor was going to give some land to the devotees, and devotees were little inactive in trying to meet him and close all the legal agreements, the deal. So Prabhupada told that strike when the iron is hot. Somehow Krishna sitting in his heart has made the situation favorable and he is willing to give it. But then if you don't take right action, you become lax in your attitude to serve Krishna. Krishna may become disappointed, he may take away the opportunity. So thus opportunities do not always come. Krishna is a person, sometimes God is always pleased, but then this freedom is there. Sometimes he will be specially pleased. He would like to give opportunity. And if you don't take opportunity, he may take away also. So thus Prabhupada was very much aware that Krishna is giving this nice opportunity. There is a counterculture movement. People are dissatisfied with the Western way of thinking. Now is the time for preach. So a huge event is going to happen. Even though health is not very good, Prabhupada still at risk was willing to go and travel there because Krishna is giving this opportunity to spread this message. Prabhupada had immediately convinced his disciples with his forceful statements. There are two misleading theories in the West. He continued, which are the two misleading theories? One is that life comes from matter. So this thing has brought a great disaster in the life of people. People think life comes from matter. Matter combines in a certain way and then the body comes into animation. So as per this theory, it is not that soul has entered the body, but the body has produced soul. And thus people do not believe. That is the second misconception, misleading theory. One is that life comes from matter, and other is that there is no life after death. You can just enjoy this life. They say everything is matter. So thus this is a very, very misleading civilization. People do not know that we are travelers. We are seated in this machine, yantra rudani mayaya. And once this machine breaks down, in the course of time, everything breaks down. Time leaves nothing eternally healthy. No body, no matter retains its shape. Everything is getting transformed. So in course of time, when this machine is broken down, the person is dead, we move to another machine, another body. And that next body, whether it will be painful or it will be full of pleasure, or will it be eternal body or full of bliss, all knowledge in the spiritual world, it depends upon our activities. But people do not know this. So much preparation, hard work, so much of education for this life. So much of attainment of name, fame, property, wealth, everything just for this life. And for next life, there is no preparation. It is as simple as just like a person who is working somewhere and he has got a notice that you have to leave the company in 2 months or 3 months. He or she would be very, very anxious to prepare or find another job. So we already have got a notice that you have to leave this body, and any time the company can kick us out. The nature can kick us out from this body. Before that, we have to prepare ourselves to become completely Krishna conscious if we want eternal body. If not, at least we should try that we do not suffer and fall into the lower species of life, which is the greatest loss. So thus people are not aware. This thing is very natural. This is very important. Anytime we will leave this body, and if we put all the efforts just for enjoyment of this life, then we have wasted this human life. So Prabhupada told, these two theories we have to correct. One is that life comes from matter, and another is that there is no life after death. You can just enjoy this life. They say everything is matter. So as this Krishna consciousness movement grows, the communists will be curbed down. People say that they are trying for unity, but they have no brains to see how this will achieve unity. They have formed a big complicated League of Nations. So what is called United Nations, similar body was there after World War I, that was called League of Nations. And now United Nations, but they all fail. But the simple method of RATH YATRA, all over the world it is spreading. Jagannath means Lord of the Universe. So Lord Jagannath is now international God through our ISKCON. Therefore, I want to go to the West and give them these things. Although Prabhupada appeared physically unfit to immediately fly to London to the active preaching that awaited him, his disciples submitted, accepting this as another miracle by Krishna. So Prabhupada appeared physically unfit, but then disciples understood Prabhupada is not working on material energy. When he wishes, he can transcend. July 7, 1973. So this Rath Yatra festival commemorates a very important incident that happened in history when Krishna became king. So he traveled to Kurukshetra on an eclipse. And many Vrajvasis, including Srimati Radharani, they also came there to see Krishna. Krishna was there, Balram were there. And when they saw Krishna, they became very delighted. It was after a long time. Krishna physically never went to Vrindavan once he left. So they became ecstatic, overwhelmed by feelings, and there was revival of all the old personal association with Krishna, and they started pulling back Krishna towards Vrindavan. Please come back to Vrindavan. So this event is commemorated every time. So in Jagannath Puri, the Jagannath temple is considered the Kurukshetra, and on the other side, where after Rath Yatra the deities go and rest for couple of weeks, that place is called Gundicha temple. And that Gundicha temple represents Vrindavan. So the devotees are pulling from Kurukshetra towards Vrindavan. So this is the meaning of Rath Yatra festival. So all the devotees who pull the Ratha, they are in the mood of Vrijvasis, the eternal associates of Krishna. And they are meeting Krishna after a long time and they are pulling him back. Please come back to Vrindavan. So Prabhupada, when he was small, he was organizing these festivals, and now London, the capital of the city which has ruled India for many years, at that place, Prabhupada it was a victory march So Prabhupada was very, very eager, and despite his feeling well, Prabhupada went and attended Rath Yatra in full rigor and devotion. Paravidha recollects, it was Rath Yatra day. I saw Prabhupada coming into the temple and he did not look very strong. I was really amazed, but I could understand that his strength was something spiritual. Dhruvanantha, another devotee, tells, at the parade site, we were waiting to receive Srila Prabhupada at Mabalak, where the procession starts. The Vyasasan was nicely decorated, and everybody was expecting Prabhupada simply to sit on his Vyasasan on the cart and just ride through the streets, just as he had done in the other Rath Yatras. So it was to our great amazement and joy that when Prabhupada came, he refused to sit on the Vyasasan. He indicated that he would dance and lead the procession. They brought stairs up so Prabhupada could mount the Rath Yatra cart and sit down on the Vyasasan. But he waved them off and just started walking with the chariots, leading the dancing. Dheera Shanta, another devotee, tells, I twisted my ankle and I couldn't walk. So I rode on the cart. Therefore I could see Prabhupada very clearly. Revati Nandan Maharaj was chanting into the microphone from the cart. But after about 15 minutes of the procession, Prabhupada told the devotees to tell Maharaj and others to come down and lead the kirtan in the street with him. Revati Nandan Maharaj recollects, when Prabhupada saw his Vyasasan on the cart, he said, no, I am just a devotee. I will go in the procession. We had a great kirtan. Hansduta led, I led, Shyam Sundar led. Different devotees traded off, leading this fantastic kirtan. And Prabhupada was right in the middle of the kirtan with his kartals the whole time. He was dancing back and forth and jumping up and down and dancing. Rohini Nandan tells, the cart was going quite slowly. Prabhupada walked about 20 or 30 yards ahead of the cart, leading the procession. Meanwhile, the kirtan was coming from the Rath cart through microphones. Prabhupada called them all down and he got them all around himself, and they were chanting Hare Krishna. Every so often he would turn around and raise both his arms very majestically in the air and say, Jai Jagannath. Sometimes we would get a little further ahead, so then he would turn around and wait for the cart to come on. Sometimes he was dancing and sometimes he would stand, raising his hands in the air. Sharadiya Dasi. Prabhupada would dance and then, after a few feet, he would turn around and look up at the deities with his arms raised. Then he would dance for a few moments, meditating on the deities, and then he would turn around and go on. In this way, he danced the entire way. The devotees held hands and circled around him to protect him from the crowd. It was a wonderful, transcendental affair. Prabhupada was looking up at the deities and all the devotees were behind him. Prabhupada surprised us. We didn't know if he was sick or not, feeling weak and dizzy or not. Sometimes he looked very ill and sometimes he looked like an 18-year-old boy. He surprised us. He had his cane in his hand, but raised it in the air as he danced. After a while, Shyam Sundar came up to me and said, look, he is not going to make it. Shyam Sundar Prabhu was the devotee in charge of London. So he told to arrange a car because anytime Prabhupada may feel weakness or he may collapse. So please keep cart at 30-second distance. Be within 30 seconds so we can reach Prabhupada in the car immediately. Prabhupada was going down Park Lane and from time to time they couldn't pull the cart fast enough to keep up with him. He would turn back, raise his hands and say Hari Bol. Several times he did this. He was going so fast that he had to wait. The devotees were dancing, the weather was beautiful and the crowd was wonderful. The passers-by were rooted to the spot looking at Prabhupada. A man of that age, simply dancing and jumping in the air like a young boy, was the most amazing sight. And then every 5 minutes or so, Prabhupada would turn around and look toward Jagannath. The devotees would clear the way so no one blocked his sight, and he had a perfect view of Jagannath, Balram and Subhadra. But after a while, the police came and motioned that we couldn't keep stopping like this. We had to keep the whole thing going because traffic jams were becoming critical. Devotees were crying and chanting and dancing, and there was much commotion. Shrutakirti, Prabhupada's servant, recollects, When Prabhupada was dancing, the bobbies, means the cops, kept on coming up looking for someone official. Finally, they came to me and said, "You will have to tell your leader to sit down. He is causing too much of a disturbance. Everyone is becoming wild and we can't control the crowd. So I said, all right, but I didn't say anything to Prabhupada. So then they came again for second time, and then Shrutakirti Prabhu approached Prabhupada. So I said, Prabhupada, the policemen want you to sit down. They say you are creating havoc in the parade. Prabhupada looked at me, turned and kept on. He completely ignored it and kept on dancing. And they couldn't do anything. Prabhupada wouldn't stop and the police wouldn't say anything to him. Paravidha recollects, I was distributing back to Godhead magazines along the whole parade route. I was exhausted and I was having lot of trouble keeping up with the procession. But Prabhupada was just there and he was dancing like a young boy. I was amazed at his spiritual energy. Dhruvanantha. When we came to Piccadilly Circus, Prabhupada suddenly stopped the whole procession. Piccadilly Circus, of course, was just packed with people. For about 3 minutes, Prabhupada stopped the procession and just danced and danced with the devotees all around him. When we got to Piccadilly Circus, Prabhupada really started to dance, Rohini Nandan recollects. He was leaping off the ground, the cart was stopped. It was very similar actually to the description in the Chaitanya Charitamrita of how Lord Chaitanya would lead the RATH YATRA procession. So the cart was stopped and then Prabhupada would wait for it to catch up. Yogeshwara tells, when we finally arrived, When we finally arrived at Trafalgar Square and Prabhupada saw the big tent and other arrangements the devotees had made, he held up his hands again. He had been dancing and walking the entire route of the parade. It must have been at least an hour that he had been walking and dancing, all the way from Hyde Park to Trafalgar Square. Rohini Nandan tells, when Prabhupada got to Trafalgar Square, he immediately sat down on the plinths of Nelson's column on a little Vyasasan and delivered a lecture about the holy name of Krishna. This was directly after his marathon of chanting and dancing. The next day's papers carried favorable news coverage of the festival, and Prabhupada wrote of it to a disciple in Los Angeles. You will be glad to know the RATH YATRA in London was very successful. The Daily Guardian had a picture on the front page of our card and stated that we were competition to the monument in the memory of Lord Nelson in Trafalgar Square. My health is good and I am taking daily walks and speaking at the class in the morning. In another letter, Prabhupada wrote, our festival here was very well received and I was so much encouraged by the whole thing that I was able to walk and dance the entire way from Hyde Park to Trafalgar Square. So these were the instances when Prabhupada would display transcendental characteristics of his personality. So Prabhupada told old age is inevitable, diseases are inevitable. So you cannot control the material nature. But if you become self-realized, we are absorbed in thoughts of Krishna. Even ordinary people. Prabhupada gave example of the communist leader who would not take anesthesia for his surgery. And he told the doctor, you please open it up. It does not matter. I want to see what is there. He was so much absorbed in thoughts of spreading communism that he was transcendental to such physical pains. So Prabhupada told this absorption is the key. Even when a person is absorbed on the mental platform, they don't feel the pains of physical platform. So what to speak of spiritual platform? So thus a person is absorbed on spiritual platform, he is not disturbed. So this is the solution which people do not know. That we have to transcend the limits. Old age will come to all of us. Death will come and so many other calamities can come to us or to the people who are very close to us. And those things will affect us if we give so much importance and we feel that these things are reality. So this body is not reality, but this illusion is created by Krishna, so it is very strong. No ordinary person can make out that it is illusion unless he is personally guided by Krishna's energy through spiritual master. So we have to understand that I am not this body and I have to absorb myself on the spiritual platform and thus enjoy the pleasure of constant association with Krishna. This is the solution of all the problems of life, and Prabhupada demonstrated. When people thought he would be barely able to walk few steps, Prabhupada danced and jumped high in the air like a very young 18-year-old boy. And like this, so many other phenomena Prabhupada would manifest here and there in his devotional mood. So Prabhupada told, I am the living proof that I am not this body. The devotees had invited many prominent British citizens to meet Srila Prabhupada, and the responses were good. Economist Ernst Schumacher promised to visit, as did philosopher Sir Alfred Ayer. When Shyam Sundar informed Prabhupada that Mr. Ayer was well known, Prabhupada replied, what is his philosophy? Well, Shyam Sundar replied, he doesn't believe in the existence of God. Prabhupada explained, I will give him the existence of God, the proofs of it. Ask him, what does it mean? What are his points for denying the existence of God? I will ask him to make a list of the deficiencies of God's existence. Prabhupada liked to meet with philosophical men and corner them and defeat them. Historian Arnold Toynbee was old and invalid. Therefore, Prabhupada agreed to visit him at his residence. Interested in discussing life after death, Dr. Toynbee asked Prabhupada about karma. Most people, he said, were afraid of death. Prabhupada agreed and added that according to a certain astrologer, one of India's recent leaders has taken birth as a dog, so they are afraid that they will go down. When Toynbee asked if karma could be changed, Prabhupada replied yes, but only by bhakti, devotion to God. So our happiness and distress of this life is fixed. This Prabhupada was explaining everywhere. If somebody tells you, even if you work hard, I will not give you more than this much amount of money, which sane person will put so much hard effort to work? But that is what we are doing here. But work everybody has to do for enjoyment, spiritual or material. Work is required. But over endeavor on material platform does not change anything because things are fixed here as per the laws of karma. So although work is required, but regulated work will fetch whatever is there, happiness or distress in our karma. But if we wish to change it, we just want to have happiness, then we have to follow the process of bhakti. Karmani nirdhati kintu cha bhakti bhajam. Yastvendra gopam athavendra mahosva karma bandhanurupa phalabhajana matanoti. It is mentioned in Brahma Samhita. Indra Gopam means small insect. So Lord Brahma to the smallest insect, they are all under the laws of karma. But karmani nirdhati kintu cha bhakti bhajam. Person who engages in bhakti, his karma is burnt. So if you want to get freedom, actually, no amount of planning, education or entrepreneurship or anything else is going to help. But complete surrenderance to Krishna, then karma is changed immediately. George Harrison approached Prabhupada in a submissive mode, similar to that of Prabhupada's disciples. Prabhupada and George took prasadam together, a special lunch of samosas, halwa, vegetables, sour cream, and puris. While they were enjoying the prasadam, Prabhupada mentioned that certain Vrindavan Pandas, professional guides, eat too much, and one ate so much that he was practically dying. But he assured his son, at least I am dying from eating, not from starving. To die of starvation is unglorious. So in this way, Prabhupada was encouraging George to eat, no problem. Prabhupada smiled as he talked with George, gratefully acknowledging his donation of the manor. Have you seen my room? Prabhupada asked. It is actually your house, but my room. No, George protested, preferring the mood of a humble disciple. It is Krishna's house and your room. When George confided to Prabhupada that by taking to Krishna consciousness, he was losing friends, as some of us may notice, and we hear from devotees that, Prabhu, I am getting isolated, and those friends are not comfortable with me. Prabhupada told him not to worry. He read to George from the Gita, where Krishna explains that he can be known only by devotional service. In the future, said George, ISKCON will be so large that it will require executive management. Then Prabhupada explained, yes, I have divided the world into 12 zones and I have appointed one representative for every zone. As long as they keep to the spiritual principles, Krishna will help them. Before leaving, George assured Prabhupada that he would help him increase his temples. Later, Prabhupada commented, George is getting inward hope from Krishna. Through George Harrison, another famous pop singer and musician, Donovan, was drawn to come and see the renowned leader of the Hare Krishna movement. So he was preaching also. He was bringing other similar famous personalities to Srila Prabhupada. Donovan, accompanied by a musician friend and their two girlfriends in miniskirts, sat in awkward silence before Prabhupada. Prabhupada spoke. There is a verse in the Vedas that says music is the highest form of education. And he began to explain how a musician could serve Krishna. You should do like your friend, George, Prabhupada said. We will give you the themes and you can write the songs. Prabhupada said that anything, even money, could be used in the service of Krishna. As soon as they heard the word money, Donovan's girlfriend interrupted, but money is material. Prabhupada said, what do you know what is material and what is spiritual? He turned to Donovan, do you understand? Donovan humbly replied that he was thick-headed, but trying. Donovan's girlfriend then leaned over and whispered something in his ear, whereupon Donovan stood up and said, well, we have to go now. Prabhupada insisted that at least they first take some prasadam. As soon as the guests left, Prabhupada and his disciples began to laugh. They understood what transpired. Prabhupada said, she was thinking, and he encouraged his disciples to finish the sentence. Yes, said Yogeshwara, she was thinking that if Krishna gets him, then she will lose him. So she thought that George Harrison has given his manner. If my boyfriend also gives it up to Krishna, what will be left for me? So immediately she took him away. Prabhupada so much liked preaching to important guests that he wanted to continue doing so wherever he traveled. Wherever I shall go now, Prabhupada wrote in a letter to a disciple, this policy of important men being invited to talk with me about our Krishna consciousness movement should be implemented. A month passed at the manor, and still several weeks remained before Janmashtami and the deity installation. So when Bhagwan requested Prabhupada to come for a visit to Paris and install Radha Krishna deities, Prabhupada agreed. So this is in Paris. Same year, 1973, August 9th. The devotees had arranged an official city hall reception for Prabhupada. In the presence of the mayor of Paris and his government entourage, Srila Prabhupada said that if the government leaders do not teach the citizens genuine God consciousness, then they are not responsible leaders. Reporting this talk in the next day's paper, news writers stated that the Swami even criticized Napoleon Bonaparte. Bhagwan recollects, we had just moved into a new temple at 4, whatever they call it, difficult to pronounce, Rue Les Sieurs, Paris. And we had received 48-inch Radha and Krishna deities. Prabhupada had Pradyumna chanting the mantras and pouring the substances on the deities, while Prabhupada himself looked on from his Vyasasana, giving directions. I was assisting, and one point I turned around and saw Prabhupada standing right next to me, taking the substances in his own hands and smearing them over lotus-like face of Srimati Radharani. After the deities were installed on the altar, Srila Prabhupada came up and offered the arti, and I assisted him by handing him the articles. After the installation, we went up to Srila Prabhupada's room and very anxiously requested him to please give a name for the deities. So although the deities are Radha Krishna, but a name is given. Krishna has unique names as per his pastimes and the loving devotees he has. Krishna is called Nandanandan because he's son of Nand Maharaj. He is called Yashoda Nandan because mother's name is Yashoda. And he is called Yogeshwara because he's master of all the mystics. So like this, Krishna has got unlimited names as per his features, his qualities, his devotees and his pastimes. So devotees wanted to ask Prabhupada by which name we can call Krishna here. Please give a name. He sat back in his chair and said, the deities will be known as Radha, Paris Ishvara. He then went on to say that in India, people look to England for education and Paris for sense gratification. He began to laugh and said that Krishna has come to Paris in order to get some gopis, some French girls, because the faces of the women in Paris are considered the most beautiful. Radharani is so beautiful, Prabhupada said, just like a Paris girl. And Krishna has come here to find out this most beautiful of all the gopis. So he is Paris Ishvara. Srila Prabhupada arrived in London, where he received an emergency phone call from Bombay. Giriraj wanted him to come and personally settle with Mrs. N the purchase of the Juhu land. Giriraj had consulted a new lawyer, Mr. Buckhill, who felt that Prabhupada must be present for there to be a settlement. Another ISKCON lawyer, Mr. Chandwal, also advised that Prabhupada come immediately to Bombay. Giriraj therefore had telephoned Prabhupada begging him to please come and settle the matter with Mrs. N once and for all. Prabhupada agreed. He would remain in London until Janmashtami, then he would return to Bombay. So Prabhupada comes back to Bombay in the month of September. The day after his arrival, Srila Prabhupada met with Mrs. N's solicitors and he heard their offers. The situation had begun to look hopeful, and yet the conclusion eluded them. Mrs. N had become changed by the public reaction to her attempt to demolish the temple. If Prabhupada would pay the full balance of 12 lakh rupees for the land in one payment, she told her lawyer, she would agree. Prabhupada was agreeable but did not want to arrange to collect his money unless he was certain that Mrs. N was actually serious. Mr. Asnani, a Bombay lawyer and ISKCON life member, regularly met with Mrs. N, persuading her to cooperate with Prabhupada. Her lawyers concurred. Yet after Prabhupada had been in Bombay for several weeks, no meeting with Mrs. N had taken place. Once, Mr. Asnani went to bring Mrs. N to meet with Prabhupada, but she was not feeling well and Prabhupada became disappointed. Again, she is postponing. Day after day, Mr. Asnani would tell Prabhupada, Mrs. N will come tomorrow. Prabhupada became disappointed. And finally, one day when he came, then other disciples, they told that, I think we can find some other person to settle this matter. And then Mr. Asnani told that, do not worry, we will close the matter in 48 hours. And then he went to Mrs. N. He requested, my Guru Maharaj is going to leave day after tomorrow. So if you don't come and settle the matter now, it will extend for one more year. So please come. Thus Mrs. N agreed to come. Mrs. N agreed, and around 9 p.m. she and Mr. Asnani arrived at the home of Mr. Bogilal Patel, where Prabhupada was going to have a program, and some guests had come. He was going to speak on the rooftop. And just when he was preparing to start speaking, he got to know Mrs. N has arrived. He came down, had a brief talk, and then continued with the program. It extended on till midnight. Around midnight, he returned to his room again, accompanied by his servant and secretary. Mrs. N was still waiting. She burst into tears and bowed at Prabhupada's feet. She sobbed, I am sorry for everything I have done. Please forgive me. She promised to do whatever Prabhupada wanted. Prabhupada looked at her compassionately and understood her heart. You are just like my daughter, he said. Don't worry. I will take care of you. I will see to all of your needs for the rest of your life. And Prabhupada said he still accepted the very terms she had proposed, that he paid the remaining balance of 12 lakh plus 50,000 rupees compensation for the delay. So also Mrs. Nair, it is not mentioned here, she was getting affected by the ghost of Mr. N. And he was coming and she was very much disturbed. So she revealed to Prabhupada. So when she settled the matter, then Prabhupada told, do not worry, tomorrow onwards you will not be disturbed by this occurrence. And then it never happened with her. At 6:30 on the evening of November 1, Prabhupada was seated in his low desk between two windows, his back against the wall. Mrs. N and her lawyers, the registrar Mr. Asnani, Mr. and Mrs. Sethi, and about 8 devotees were also present, and the full room grew warm and stuffy. So both were sitting, and registrar prepared the papers for signing. Srila Prabhupada sat gravely. The room was silent except for the sound of papers rustling and a pen scratching. Preparing and signing the conveyance papers took more than 20 minutes. Prabhupada paid Mrs. N, who then signed the conveyance. The land was legally ISKCON's. Giriraj recollects, the room was hushed during the signing, and everyone felt as if a momentous event was taking place, just as if two great world powers were signing a treaty. After Mrs. N signed the document, everyone silently watched the papers being passed. She started to cry. Tamal Krishna Goswami asked her why she was crying. And she replied that just that day Mr. Mathur had come and told her that he had found a buyer for the land for many more lakhs than we were paying. Actually, as we were watching Mrs. N, we were thinking that she must be remembering all the events that had taken place, the wrong she had done, the death of her husband. It was very intense, like a combination of months of struggling. So, for Prabhupada, the devotees and Prabhupada's well wishers, their dreams and desires and efforts over the past many years were being fulfilled. Prabhupada asked that devotees inform the newspapers and invited everyone into the hall outside his room for a feast. Mats were rolled out into two lines and devotees brought leaf plates and placed them in front of everyone. The devotees began serving in various dishes to the two rows of seated guests. Prabhupada was standing. Now let us start, he said. The devotees had prepared several courses, rice, dal, many varieties of pakoras such as potato, cauliflower and eggplant, potato sabji, papads, burfi, wet cauliflower sabji, laddus, cham-cham, vermicelli kheer, halwa, and a lime drink. It was a festive and happy occasion. Mrs. Warrior, one of the tenants of Hare Krishna land, recollects, the devotees were all saying Jai after the singing, and all of them were very happy. Then Prabhupada gave a lecture about the Bombay project. He gave an idea to all the people of how it would be all marble. Some were asking how it would be possible for everything to be all marble, and Prabhupada explained it was possible. It could be done. He was visualizing the project and everyone was thrilled to hear the way he was describing it. It would be like one of the 7 wonders of the world. People would be attracted from all over to come and see it. It would be a landmark in Bombay. Prabhupada explained the whole project as if he saw it in his mind's eye. And he said that after it was constructed, it will be more than what we could visualize. It would be fantastic. After the late feast, when everyone had departed, Prabhupada returned to his room, leaning back at his desk. He exclaimed, "It was a good fight." So many more events, it is just a brief description, happened in the course of this Bombay fight. So there were many people who were opposing this project vehemently. And Mr. N, Mrs. N were the two, and they suffered very badly. And the doctors also could not understand. He was otherwise fit. How he could suddenly pass away in 2 weeks from a sudden heart attack. Similarly, there was another person who was doing black magic. He was living very close to the land on the other side of the road. And less intelligent people, they don't surrender to Krishna. And they surrender to either devatas or those who are in ignorance. They worship the bhutas and pishachas, tamasic worship. So Shuddha Sattvic worship is done for devotional service. Then people do worship other devatas in Rajasic mode for sense gratification. And others in Tamasic mode, they worship neither for devotional service to Krishna, not for impersonal liberation, nor for sense gratification, but they worship to destroy the enemy. They are full of envy. The more we are having tamas, this envy increases in the heart. So that is why people take to such things as worship of ghosts, evil spirits, and do black magic. And some people who are less intelligent, Krishna tells in Bhagavad Gita that people get very quick results by worshipping devatas and other spirits. So they worship sometimes pitras, forefathers, sometimes they worship ghosts, evil spirits, and after death, they go to the same destination. Worshippers of ghosts become ghosts. Those who worship forefathers meet their forefathers, and madhyajinopi ma yanti mam. Those who worship me, they will come to me. So this person was doing black magic. Many candles he would light and do all kinds of arrangements. And many rich people also would come to him. Many cars would line up. And having a car was a sign of definite opulence in those times. And many cars would line up. But then here were the devotees. They are opposite to the Tamasic worship, Shuddha Sattvic worshippers of Krishna. So he was envious. And when the blow torches were acting sledgehammers and everything was being used by the municipal workers, breaking down the temple, so he was coming there and he was laughing. So the first Mataji who had joined in Bombay, her mother was also living close by in the proximity of the temple. And when she saw that this person, this black magician, he is laughing when the temple is getting destroyed. She told, now you are laughing seeing Krishna's temple being burnt and destroyed. You will get burnt in a similar fashion. And once the things got settled, and after some time, the devotees were doing Mangala Arati, the morning time before sunrise, which happens. And then they notice loud shrieks coming from the neighborhood. And then they come out and they see ambulance coming and people taking out dead body, and they got to know that this person, black magician, he committed suicide by putting kerosene over himself and burning himself down. So why would a person commit suicide like that, who was having some powers, and he was having some rich people as his followers, as his clients at least? So it is explained that this black magic has got, if you have read Krishna book, you would have come across the instance that if you use black magic and if you use these ghostly powers, if they are not able to destroy their object, desired object of destruction, then they come back and kill the very person who has invoked them. So this is a great danger in black magic. So thus, because he would have called some spirit to destroy the devotees, but devotees being surcharged with spiritual potency, the ghost or the spirits would have been rendered helpless. Thus they went back and they killed the same person. So this happens many times with the black magicians. When the ghosts cannot destroy the object, it destroys the source itself. And then there was another person. This person was a politician, and he was ISKCON life member also somehow. And then his plot was, legally we are members of society, so we also can take over the society. So full-time devotees, Americans are also members, we are also life members now. So they wanted to take over the society legally, and on the plea that these people are not able to manage the affairs nicely. And one day, when after organizing this agitation like that, he was passing in front of the legislative building, and suddenly he also got heart attack and he collapsed and died. So like this, Krishna, whatever opposition was coming to the temple, so all these very great traumas and rather death happened to them, and others also had traumatic experience. Another person was there and devotees were discussing, he was also famous and powerful man, that why no reaction has come to him, he has created so much problem for us. So then they discussed the shloka in Bhagavad Gita, that for a person who is famous, dishonor is worse than death for such a man. And this person was dishonored. He was caught in an inappropriate affair with a woman. He was seeking some physical favors for, he was in influential position. So to hand over the post, appoint somebody, he would take such favors usually. And then other scams also were pointed out. So people were putting shoe garland on his picture and burning his effigy, and all such things were happening. So he was dishonored very much in the public and in the media. So it is very, very important affair that anybody who supports even little bit, then great blessings come to them. And anybody who tries to put a hurdle in the mission of devotee, that is very, very dangerous. So Prabhupada had great plans for Bombay, and Prabhupada told a temple should come up. In Prabhupada's vision in Mayapur is getting fulfilled now, big temple is coming up. And for Bombay also Prabhupada wanted, it should be such a big place, it should be a wonder in the world. And from all across the world, people should come to see it. So we hope that all of us will try, and let us try to bring something in Bombay as well, so that it is a wonder and people all across the world can come and see this place. So let us all try to preach very nicely, very widely, and let us have a Hare Krishna city here, and all of you also can come here and live here, and we'll all do devotional service and preach very nicely. So especially for Bombay, Prabhupada told. So Bombay is heart of India and people are educated. So from Bombay, we should have thousands of preachers, and they should go all across the world and preach this message of Srimad Bhagavatam. So final temple, Vrindavan temple, those pastimes also we'll hear tomorrow. And with this, we will end the temple pastimes, and then we'll start another most important and interesting phase in the pastimes of Srila Prabhupada. So it's over for now. Thank you so much for hearing. Please don't forget to like it, try to share it, and put your comments, your realizations in the form of comments. That will help you to get a proper clear conception, good clarity about what you have just discovered. It will help others also, those who watch the videos, and plus the video will be able to reach many more people. Thank you so much for watching. We'll meet tomorrow again. Hare Krishna.